Okay, welcome back. So we have today part 3 of Vogue, March 2020. So let's get started with the images here. And the first one is on the right. We have Neiman Marcus, who just filed for a bankruptcy, right? Like ambiance, the ambiance afforded by a Neiman Marcus and a Macy's and a Bloomingdale's. Okay, we had quite a few years of that. We paid extra, right? We paid a premium on the price tag for the ambiance of these high-end retailers. And then over the years, we started getting to more discount retailers. And then the extreme of that was Amazon, where they're just big giant depots and fulfillment centers. And it's to the point now where your Macy's and your Neiman Marcus's, they just can't, right? Nobody wants to pay that high-end premium for the ambiance of shopping in the store when you can just order it online. So it's a shame we're witnessing the end of an era with like stores like Bloomingdale's and Macy's and Neiman Marcus. But let's get to the photography. So this is cool. This just almost looks like a Camilla Akron shot, but it isn't. It's Alexandra Nataf, and it's so we a lot of things are by decade. So let's cover. This would be pre-1970s. This is what fashion photography looked like. Probably, maybe let's say mid-70s. I'm just ballparking. And before. We get into the late 70s, and what happened is, for about 20 years, from about the it was more than 20 years, we had a real tight, if you look at Vogue and Harper's, throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s, all of the images, almost nearly all of them, were a very tight head and shoulders portrait. This is all we saw of the models for quite some time. Okay, then we got into the OOs, right, the 2000s, and the camera once again came out to this, a full-length shot. Okay, so we have 70s, 80s, and 90s. In the OOs, the camera comes out. We get to the late 10s, and we get to the photographers like Camilla Akron's. The camera is even now further out. Okay, so again, we see gradations of the camera, right? How far in the camera is to the model, and we're very far out from the model, and this works. I think this is beautiful. And again, this entire genre was led by Camilla Akron's. So it's environmental. You can see the model is occupying very little of the page, very little of the real estate. But what's so grand is we get to see the model in an environment, and I really love this style of photography. This I'm going to save. This is going to be a one photo deep dive on exposure bracketing. That's why I marked this. We're going to really deep dive into exposure bracketing on this image. So as a matter of fact, let me put my marker back in here. Okay, this is cool. I always say that, be on the lookout when you're on a walkabout, or you're just walking around or whatever. Look for this, right, and just make a mental note. Say, oh my gosh, that's a cool, this mosaic tile. That would be really cool for a photo shoot, right? Because this is uncommon. It almost looks like a swimming pool. It looks like they've emptied the water out of a swimming pool, right? And it looks like it's being shot in a swimming pool, but you can see here, it isn't. It looks like, or maybe it is. I don't know. It's really hard to tell, but it almost looks like it's shot inside of obviously an emptied swimming pool by this blue mosaic tile. But again, always be on the lookout for interesting backgrounds to do one of your shoots. Here we have, we have this golden yellow light, incandescent light here, right? Now you can override that, of course, in camera. All you have to do is set your camera to incandescent. It'll automatically adjust your white balance for you, your color temperature, and this would appear a natural 5500 if you do an in-camera setting. But here the photographer just left it at daylight, and I guess it was artistic in that the photographer wanted this golden yellow light, and it works. Anyways, it just works. We've covered this before. If you look at these costumes here, outfits, these were all done by, this is a Jeremy Scott inspired runway show, September 2019 in Milan, Italy. It was a Picasso-specific runway show. All these outfits got repurposed to this Moschino advertisement shot by Steven Meisel. And the models are really working. You have I forgot her name already. Iman Hammam, Gigi Hadid, rocking this Linda Hamilton. You can tell this is an 80s theme, and you can tell her she's wearing her hair almost exactly like Linda Hamilton was wearing her hair in the Terminator, the original one. So this is really 80s, but it's just not working with these Picasso. This, again, I'm repeating myself. These were for a very specific Picasso runway show, and they got really badly repurposed to this Moschino ad for an 80s game show, and it's not working. This is terrible. This is really, really, really bad repurposing of costumes. The reason I'm showing you this one here is this is a really bad post-processing job. And I'll give you a second. If you study it, you can see what's wrong with the photo. Okay, her face is much more illuminated than anything else in the photo. Right? So what happened, if this is a strobe, it looks like a strobe is definitely popping and hitting her. Because this is all gray skies. It's raining, right? So this would be a very overcast sky, and therefore the light on her face would be overcast, right? But you can tell this is popping. So what's wrong with this photo? There's a strobe popping and hitting the model, but you're not getting any specular highlights in the material. So where's the strobe bouncing back off of the material? It's gone, right? So this looks unnatural. It almost looks like they've photoshopped this face into this image. Okay. Can you see that? How much pop there is on the face, but how can that be in such a gloomy, rainy day? And again, where's the specular highlight in the raincoat? It's missing. So this is a really bad Photoshop job. This is beautiful. Large aperture. Okay, so again, there's so much whiz-bangery going on nowadays with Photoshop. It's really hard to tell anymore what's real and what isn't. But to me, I would say give the photographer the benefit of the doubt. Somewhat large aperture, right? So the model's in focus and they're blowing out this background, and it still works even though there's the light. The light is coming to her back, right? The light is coming in this direction. Her face is a little bit in shadow, but you can still see her face. I mean, overall, it's really quite a nice image. Here, I love this hat. I don't know who styled this hat, but we've covered this before. That definitely looks like Cecil Beaton. I would say that they had this in some type of a vault, and props, but it was on lockdown, right? Because this is probably worth a lot of money. Because I could almost swear this was original creation by Cecil Beaton, right? And they put it on Lady Gaga for the shoot. But that's got to be under a very heavy lock and key, because this is worth thousands of dollars if that's an original Cecil Beaton creation. Here, so this is what I was talking about. Now, we talked about blue, and you can tell this blue is just not working. Okay, this is either number 75, this is Savage, it's a number 75 True Blue, or number 36 Ocean Blue. It's one or the other, because you never really know depending on how much light is hitting them, right? The more light that hits the paper, the lighter it appears. But it looks like 75 True Blue or 36 Ocean Blue, and it's not working. It looks too much like a green screen, right? So the reason you would use this, again, it's like, so say if you wanted to, for the purposes of this shoot, right, the artistic director said, I want this to be blended in with a background of Paris, right, the Eiffel Tower. So I want this model to appear as if the Eiffel Tower, she's in Paris and the Eiffel Tower is in the background. So what you do is you create two different layers, right? You can create multiple layers. But my point is, this blue becomes like a green screen. And you take this model and you superimpose it on an image of Paris, France, with the model in the background, with the Eiffel Tower in the background, and you have multiple layers working together to create this. But again, this is throwaway. The spirit of this is this blue is going to be thrown away, and the image of Paris is going to be inserted here. But you can see when you really use it as a paper, blue is hard. This blue is not working. It's not even close to working in this photo. So for the life of me, I just don't see why photographers choose this blue to shoot against. It's horrible. That's an absolutely dreadful paper. Here, this is cool. Image on the right. We're getting back to, again, very shapely models. This almost looks like a model that was recruited by Paul Marciano for Guess. Very, very well, she's got a great figure. Almost looks like Emily Ratajkowski. If you had to guess, who is this model? Judging from the back, you would almost swear that's Emily Ratajkowski. I'm not sure if it is or not, but it kind of conjures Emily Ratajkowski when you look at it. But so now this is the fourth advertiser who's using very shapely models. Again, we always said Guess, then now it's Dolce & Gabbana, and then Chloe, and now the fourth one is this Giuseppe Zanotti. Okay, so more and more fashion houses are starting to get away from these skinny little emaciated models, and they're going to real, honest to goodness knockout models like we had in the 80s. 80s was the decade of the supermodel, and they look like this: Paulina Poroskova and Cindy Crawford and Elle Macpherson, right? I could go on and on about how all the 80s supermodels look like this, and now we got all these little 100-pound, right? I don't want to criticize them if they truly have eating disorders, but my point is, it's nothing to look at. When you look at these girls, you're thinking, what the hell, what is this about? Because these little emaciated models aren't doing anything for me. Okay, so Isabel Marant has been absent. They just completely disappeared for about a year, 18 months. So this is their first reappearance, again, after an absence about a year and a half. Okay, so they fired that previous team, okay, because the photography was dreadful. It was literally the worst advertiser in any of the fashion magazines. Now it's been replaced. I'd say it's Todd's, TOD''S, is the new bottom of the barrel. But we're getting to this bag. Now this is photographed by Jürgen Teller. Okay, he photographed recently J-Lo on Manhattan on the High Line for Coach, right? So that was Jürgen Teller. He's getting more work here from Isabel Marant. The photo is working. It almost looks like a saddle. It's kind of cool. It looks like a saddle that would go on a horse, right? So you got some saddle imagery here. This image on the right, the photography is okay, and I like the rivets, because what it's supposed to emulate here, we got rivets here, and then we have rivets all in this outfit. And what it's supposed to replicate is airplane skin, right? Like now it's tungsten inert gas, right? Airplanes are welded, but in the olden days they were riveted. The different panels were riveted to the airframe. And you can see the way this is designed. This almost looks like little pieces of aluminum that are riveted to an airframe. And it's just wonderful. It's just so Isabel Marant has made a lot. Now I'll give some constructive criticism. They did a good job going with Jürgen Teller. He's a much better photographer than what they were using 18 months ago when they disappeared. Okay, the styling, Isabel Marant's styling has gotten considerably better in these last 18 months. Much better styling. But I'm getting back to the model. This model is not up to the job. Okay, we're getting back to, it almost appears, right, there's some nepotism. Some phone calls were made. She might be the daughter or niece of some executive in Hollywood, right? Right, the daughter or niece of an entertainment executive, the daughter or niece of a hedge fund manager. But my point is, this model is not making it. So Isabel Marant, they've gotten 2 out of the 3 right. The thing they need to fix is their caliber of models. This is gorgeous photography here. This is just wonderful. Look at this split. That's almost a perfect split light. Almost. And now it's not coming directly down the center of the nose, but, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be precise, Look at that, though. Look at the light. That is just a tremendous photograph. Got a Gibson Les Paul over here. Same Gibson. Large aperture, right there. Somewhat large. Blowing out this. I shouldn't say blowing it out. It's not blown out. But, right, it's this. The model's in focus. And this background has been blurred out. So who is this? Redemption. This advertiser is called Redemption. And wow, that is just excellent photography. Just tremendous. Really, really well done. You very rarely see photography that artistic in these fashion magazines with the extreme lighting. Right? Look at the lighting ratios here. Holy moly. That's really extreme, but it's working. It's very artistic. And look at the caliber of the model. Okay, again, she's curvy, right? She's got some shape to her. So I think we're on a very good trend here with models getting back to looking like honest to goodness models. Okay, here, this image has been over sharpened. Okay, it went to Photoshop. The Photoshop technician has adjusted the color temperature and the tint. So the color temperature has been pulled too far into the gold. The tint has been pulled too far into the green. So we have a color temperature tweak, we have a tint tweak, we have a sharpening tweak. It's been the slider has been too far right, it's over sharpened, and the same with clarity. The clarity slider has been pulled too far right. So we have 4 mistakes in this photo. We have color temp, tint, sharpening, and clarity. Okay, so the photographer did a good job capturing the base image, right? The base image is working. It went to the Photoshop technician, and the Photoshop technician ruined the image. Here, okay, I'm at 16 minutes. I'm going to cut this at 20. So here we have what looks to be Chima Yesta's photography. Chima Yesta, this has got his thumbprints all over it. So I would say this is his photo. Just kind of has that look. But anyways, it works. But there's too much of this. There's too much of this, right? It's the cloud, the red clouds and stuff. Okay, there's, right? I don't like it. Takes away from the image. This tomfoolery, Chima Yesta, he's engaging in this too much now, where there are distractions in the photo because my attention is not on the clothing, right? Because the Diesel, they're trying to sell the clothes. So the attention should be on the model's clothes. But the problem is when you insert all this colored stuff in here, the eye goes to this instead of this. So that's the problem. Here, now this image is working. The model is good. Okay, we're talking about models with curves, models who look healthy. But the problem is this was shot in ambient light, natural light, and it's overexposed. So you can see this white, this bone or ivory color, right? This tan. It's returning too much light into the camera. So obviously you want this, right? You want the model in the chair. So this is an easy fix. You take the highlight slider, you take highlight and you just drag it left a little bit. Just drag it left enough till you bring these highlights down. We're getting specular highlights on her forehead and on this wall. You bring the highlights down a little bit and you can repair this image, but the Photoshop technician did not repair that, did not fix that. So this is what I was talking about before. This is horrible. You always, if you're going to shoot something like this, you shoot low. The axis of the lens is low and you shoot up. Because what you want to do is elongate the legs and you make the trunk, the torso, appear shorter. So here's what the photographer did. Just the opposite. The axis of the lens, you can tell the axis of the lens is somewhere in here. Okay? And it's a wide angle and the photographer is shooting down. And it has the opposite effect. So it has elongated the torso and miniaturized the legs. The legs look unnaturally short, compressed. Okay? It's a terrible photo. You never shoot at this axis down. Because look how unnatural this photograph is. It's terrible. Okay. This is cool. I was thinking about this. I gave some consideration to this image because it's red skies. Remember the old saying, red skies at night, sailors delight. Red skies in the morn, sailors be warned. So anyways, they're red skies. And I'm thinking this probably could have used 1/3 of a stop bump exposure, right? Take the exposure slider and just bump it a little bit. Probably not even a full 1/3 of a stop. But it would, in hindsight, it would have destroyed the red skies. And it would have lost this feel. So the Photoshop technician really did the right thing by taking the exposure slider and maybe bumping it just a little bit left to pull the exposure down. Because you want this evening, you want this sunset feel with the red sky. You want the sunset feel and this slight underexposure to this image. So the Photoshop technician did a great job editing this image. Dooney and Bourke. Again, I have no interest in them whatsoever, full disclosure, but I think it's the best value in the industry. If you're talking about how far your money goes for the quality of the bag, it's impossible to beat Dooney and Bourke and Coach. I think Coach and Dooney are the best two values out there as far as what you get for the money. So I'm going to cut it here. Let's end part 3, and we'll resume with part 4. If you enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up. If not, feel free to give me a thumbs down. And I will see you later for part 4. Thank you.